Welcome back to the Let's Talk Vibes podcast, where we speak soul contracts, illuminating the path to higher understanding. We're your hosts, Lauren and Yiannah, and this week we are joined by a very special guest, our teacher, the man, the myth, the legend, Nicolas David Ngan. Nicolas has been at the forefront of raising human consciousness for nearly 30 years with the cutting edge spiritual technologies that he and his team offer through the Center for Conscious Ascension. Soul contract readings is one of these modalities and it reveals the absolute truth of the spiritual map of your life through the sounds of your birth name. Well, welcome, Nicolas.
Thanks for having me on the show, Lauren and Yiannah, my favorite
Well,
student.
Yay!
yeah. Stroke that for ego.
Favorite practitioners, we should say now.
Well, I call you the man, the myth, the legend because you probably get mentioned at least once in every other episode. You know what Nicolas says. So now our listeners get to meet you. The man himself put a face to the name if you're watching on YouTube. And we really want to kind of jump in with you, Nicolas, and hear about how you got started in this work. If people have listened to our first episode, they know that this work was first channeled in by Frank Alper, 1980s, and you studied with him in the 90s. How did that come to be?
We'll go back to the beginning. I had this really strong urge in my 20s to leave New Zealand, which is a little island in the middle of nowhere, far, far away from anything in the world. And culturally, we're always encouraged to do the big overseas expedition experience, OE, we call it. So I managed to escape at 26 with some friends and just to see the rest of the world. It was very open-ended. I thought I'd go back in 2 or 3 years maybe. And as we spent most of 1987 traveling around Asia, and then there was a massive share market crash in October 87. And so we didn't have as much money as a result from the investments to go to Europe. So I had to go to Japan to teach English, having just met quite a few people when I was just visiting Japan for a month. So rather than coming to Europe, I went to Japan. And part of my process there was I met an American woman who was running a spiritual or an English school up in the mountains in Japan. But she was very spiritual and she'd been studying with Frank Alper. And I was just reading Shirley MacLaine books and meditating, doing transcendental meditation, just a real beginner, wondering what was really going on, because I could tell the rest of what I saw in the world wasn't actually true. There's a lot more to it. So I received this brochure from her. It was a brochure from Frank for the Carousel of Growth, and I was magnetized by this thing. I couldn't put it down. And I kept opening and looking and I think I've got to go to this workshop. I've never been to America before. And so a year later, I planned everything around getting to the workshop, which was January the following year in 1990. And so I'm sitting at a Holiday Inn, I think it was in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm not quite sure how this was meant to work. And I walked into this room with 30 other people. And Frank was there and they all seemed really familiar and speaking the same language as I was. So this was my first major spiritual workshop. And over that week, I had a numerology of Moses reading, or spiritual numerology of Moses reading, which is what Frank called it. We took my birth certificate name and drew a Star of David on a piece of paper, did all the maths that goes with it, converting my name into Hebrew letters and Hebrew numbers. And he explained my entire life in that 1 hour. And that was sort of one of the most profound moments in my life. Sort of up there with the birth of kids and stuff like that. It was like the light bulb went on. And I said to him, where can I learn this, Frank? This is incredible. You explained everything. All the disparate parts of my life that made no sense. I felt like I was in a padded cell, bouncing off it all the time. Messes happening everywhere. And he said, well, I'm teaching it in 6 weeks. I'm teaching it here at Carousel too. So I said, yeah, I'm coming. So basically I delayed going to Europe. And what I did is I traveled around to America, staying at the homes of all the people I met on the Carousel 1 and made a lot of good friends.
Wow.
As a result of that, when I turned up to Carousel 2, and which is a mixture of healing and the numerology work. And he handed us about 12 pages, type pages of information about it. And that was it. And he would just talk about it in between doing healing processes and channeling and stuff like that. And it was quite incredible. He basically channeled us from the soul of Moses in the 80s, driving in the Arizona desert over about a period of 9 months, all the interpretations. And he just talked about it. And we furiously wrote notes and picked it all up. And I was entranced by this whole thing. And so I brought it to Europe. And I used to have these little flashcards where I write all the interpretations down. I was doing a normal job in London. I was a temp doing admin and spreadsheet work in the financial sector in London. And I'd be on the bus or the tube trying to absorb all this knowledge. It was very frustrating because I had 4 4s and 11 2s. I just couldn't retain anything. Like I was like my brain was a sieve.
Oh, I feel you.
First few years, I was like, am I ever going to get this thing? So I spent the first 4 years, 1990, 94, just learning this, but also starting to connect with spiritual networks in London. And I started doing readings in the weekends. And that's how it started. I started doing readings to people I met on spiritual workshops, and it sort of gradually grew from there, sort of a part-time. I do it a couple of weekends a month. That's how it started. And then in 94, I taught the first training because I learned enough, and so my team said it's time to teach some people. And there were quite a lot of people interested, people who had received the readings. And that's how it got started here, really. And then I left my corporate job in 97. It was a blue sky, May or June day. About this time of the year, but it was bright blue sky. I was sitting in my glass box office in London, and this only cloud in the sky flew past, about 200 foot long, in the shape of an angel. And it was looking at me. It got my attention, obviously, thinking, that's not a cloud. I looked at it at all. And that was the beginning. I was how old was I? I was 37 at that time. And it was like, it's time to get on with this mission. So I converted my full-time, 1.5 times job. It was a really high-pressure job, into a 2 or 3 day a week part-time job for about 6 months, and got this business off the ground. And moved into full-time, giving readings and running trainings and doing healing. And we're still doing this 30-odd years later. More than 30 years, nearly 30 years later. That's how the whole thing started, really. And there was no internet in those days, and people just heard by word of mouth. They would say, I want what she had, that reading, because that's really good. Here's the money, let's go. So it was purely word of mouth. That's how this business started. We had brochures sitting in centres in London. Email barely, only just had been invented. The internet was really rudimentary. So there was no website, no nothing. That's how the whole thing started.
I mean, that's inspiring, right?
What's that?
It's like so inspiring, because it's like nowadays the way things work is very different than that. It's like you can't even imagine having to just blindly do all that without having access to the internet where you can connect to people globally. Now it's so easy to put an idea out there and you just reach people everywhere. Back then, it's like you truly had to just do everything organically, like talk to people, get out there. And like, I love that. I just love that.
It was completely in person. It was totally in person. Everything was in person through personal networks. That's the way we did it in those days, and bought a lot of stamps and printed a lot of brochures and mailed them out, and cost a fortune.
Oh, yeah.
But that's how we built the business. And then Almira Ariel Halle, who created the center with me, she turned up around 1999, and we expanded the work about 10 years to make it what it is now, because she was a brilliant natural teacher, so she could see how to expand it. So between the two of us, I mean, we'd get together about once a month, every 2 months, and keep expanding the interpretations. So, 12 pages turn into 110-page or 210-page manuals. as a result of that. And we gave thousands of readings and sessions. So that's how it grew from one little seed. I just happened to be in the right place, and it was all orchestrated in Japan. And this is how the whole thing started. So I never heard of Frank before. I didn't even consider it. I didn't even know there were spiritual workshops you could really go to. I was just sort of minding my own business, just starting to awaken.
And then you
That
wrote
is
a book.
really incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you wrote a book.
Oh, okay, yeah, the book. So in 2011, my guidance team, the soul contract team, said, it's time to write the book. And I said, you what? Time to write the book. I said, I don't know how to write the book. And I said, we'll show you. So they did. And they introduced me to Nick Williams, who's a very prolific spiritual author here. And he was running a workshop on how to write a book. And I couldn't make the workshop because Gabriel, our son, I was looking after him. And by the time our Mary and I had separated, but we're still really good friends, we'd gone in different directions. And so he sent me the raw recordings. And he said, look, meet me for drinks. Or we met at a hotel he was at. And we sat down, and in about an hour, he helped me outline the structure of the book. Okay.
Wow.
And then he introduced me to my publishing consultant, and she could see what the value of this was, and she basically fleshed it out, gave me all the structure and of how to actually write this book so people would read it end to end. And then she introduced me to my publisher, Watkins, because she knew the head of Watkins at that stage. And so I spent 18 months writing the book. 18 months, an hour every morning, getting up early to write it. And then I sent it in, and 3 days later, he called me and said, we're going to publish this. Sometimes you wait 3 months to even get a reply. So we're going to publish this. Basically, let's go. Let's do this. I'd given him a reading as well. And this is how it happened. All these doors opened, and I went from being a struggling alternative therapist to this book becoming an Amazon bestseller in the first month, I think it was. And then a networker, Sandy Sedgbeer, very well known in America, from a TV show she does, she got hold of it. And then her best friend was Regina Meredith, who hosts Open Minds at Gaia.com. And then we did 5 shows over a couple of years as a result. So it all these doors open. It was like it was all planned. And then it was just amazing what happened, going from being completely obscure to being discovered. It's in my human design. And then it sort of took off, really. And we're still selling lots of books. We're selling even more books now. Sort of 13 years. No, the book got published in 2013. So 11 years later, we're selling increasing numbers of books, rapidly increasing numbers. So that's how it got started, really. Because I wrote the book because it's the book I would have liked to have to guide me when I was trolling around in the dark, not really knowing what was going on. That's why I wrote it. So because I could get on with their mission, because I observed so many struggling. And I realized, this is the tool. So we need the process of finding out your true purpose and what you have to do to get there, become your karma, bring your talents online, and achieve your goals to get to your soul destiny, your life purpose. Plus, I put all the spiritual philosophy I'd learned in there as well to give a broader structure of why we're here, why are we alive, why are you reading this book, and what you can do about it, and how to get on and manifest your mission, deliver a gift of service. That's what's happened, and now it's a global teaching business. So.
Well, look, it's a total full circle moment for me and Lauren too, right now, for us 3 to be sitting here, because personally for me, I was watching a podcast one day, this was 2 years ago or something, and there was a practitioner on there, and first time I'd heard about soul contracts, and she pulls up the host soul contract, and from the moment she starts explaining it, I was like, okay, like I just need to know everything about what is happening. Yep. She talked about your book. I got it on Amazon. I got it the next morning. I read through it immediately. And I don't like to highlight my books or like bend the pages. And now I'm like highlighting. I'm like, I need to remember this stuff. And as I'm reading through it, there were parts of it that really made me mad. My sixes got like, what the heck? I don't need somebody calling me out in the places where I still struggle. And then when I got over that, I think it was only like a matter of like maybe a month or two later, I was like, let me look this up and just see. And then you guys had just completed the US training. This was last year, the US training for Soul Contracts Level 1. And I was like, I can't wait another year or 6 months or whatever. And I think it was like the following month, you had the Asia Pacific training. So as a mother to a 1-year-old at the time, I put her to bed for now, because it's 5 nights, right? Over 2 weekends. I put my daughter to bed at 7 o'clock at that time. I put myself to bed. And then from midnight, I think it was 12:30 a.m. till 8:30 a.m. I was doing the training. And by the time we finished, then my daughter's like, Mama, like, let's go. And I was like, oh my God. But it led us all to where we are now, right? I mean, Lauren, I'm sure you have the same story where you just were hooked on something. And now we're sitting here talking to you after we've done all the training and having this experience. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I found the book by accident in a way. Like I was searching about soul contracts, like I heard that term and I wanted to learn more about it. And then I found Your Soul Contract Decoded. So it's not that I had seen a chart and I knew what the system was. I just knew that term soul contract and Googled. I looked for it in my library, and my library had the book. So, it tells you about my community that this library has it, But yeah, I loved it because I studied linguistics in college. So when it says like phonetically write your name, I really took that very literally. Like I probably didn't read the part where it's like, just do it as it's written. And so I kind of was doing the sound. So where I have like double letters in my last name, I would just put it once, or I would kind of be like, well, what's the appropriate vowel sound? Like I took it a little too literally, the phonetics. So technically the first chart that I saw was not technically accurate, but it resonated because a lot of the frequencies were the same. They're just not in the correct position according to my birth chart. But I always say I was meant to find that chart first because it had an 11-2 as the physical talents. Whereas in my life, in my chart, it's in the spiritual talents, but it made me think for a year, this is what I thought my chart was, but it had me in my head, what am I here to build? What am I here to build? And I created this whole vision of something I want to create one day, of like this center where you mix like the arts and the spirituality. And I talk about this in our 19.1 episode a little bit. Like it's a place to kind of come and be creative and all of this stuff. And it's like, I never would have had the inspiration if I hadn't been asking myself, what am I here to build? So I kind of feel like, again, spirit kind of guides you. And I kind of find that I'm like, sometimes spirit takes you to something that's not 100% accurate because you need something from that in that moment. So I need to ask myself that question. So that's my story.
Well, I've watched this book. What it does, it literally jumps off bookshelves. One reader emailed me, said, Nicolas, I had half a dozen books in my arm at the Spiritual bookshop, New Age bookshop in Manhattan. And he said, then your book literally jumped off the shelf. I put the other books down, just forgot about them, took it home, and I finished at 4:30 in the morning next day. Couldn't put it down. Give me more. And that's a very common story. And 24 to 48 hours is the average read time, and someone's really into it. 72 at the stretch. Sometimes people just don't sleep. They just read it because they found the truth.
Yeah.
So it's very magnetic, the frequency. I've discovered what it does as an awakening tool. And it comes to people only when they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they can't find it. I found a really interesting phenomenon on Amazon. People give it 4 or 5 star readings who get it. And some say, this is the best personal development book I've read, full stop. And then 1 or 2 stars where people are not quite ready. They say, I don't understand this. This is gibberish. I have no idea what's going on here. This is a waste of money, and nothing in between. So it sort of showed me that you've got to be ready at the level of truth. David Hawkins' scale of consciousness from the book Power versus Force. It showed me that it's 600 on truth, and at love 500, unconditional at 540. And if you're not ready for that, you just can't read it. It just doesn't, you won't get it. I found it really fascinating. So only the true seekers who are ready will receive the work in the right time, just like it came to me at the right time, because I always felt there was something special I was here to do. No one could tell me. And then I had the reading, and then I knew. Frank said, you know, you're here to teach and wake people up. And so that's what I did. I went off and did that. And I've been doing that for since I met him for 34 years. That it was sort of like my life went from chaos to complete alignment and focus and fulfillment. And you have to be ready for that.
Let me
When
ask you.
he mentioned the waking people up, was that something that immediately you were like, oh yes, that is my mission? Or was it kind of like, you know, we talk about with the sixes, you have to plant seeds. Was it kind of like a seed that was planted?
No, it was my spiritual talent 22-4, the 4 wanting to share, and the spiritual goal 4, I must share this. Really, that was the most powerful drive. I must share this. Is so valuable. And I'd seen how people suffer so much on earth because they don't know what's going on in their life. And this was the key. It's like, okay, this is the spiritual map of life. This is everything you need to know to get on with it. So I've got to tell people about this because it completely changed my life. So that's what was really driving it. And I didn't have the vision of what's happened now, like a best-selling book and being on Gaia and a global teaching business. I just would do what was next. Okay, what's next? I mean, even when I left the corporate world, I didn't know what I was really going to do. I just went off traveling for 6-9 months and just see what happens. Maybe I'll go back to the corporate, maybe or not. It was pretty fuzzy in those days. And then it became clear that I wasn't going to go back. So I had to revive my business. Because I worked part-time in the corporate world, then I left to travel for 6 months to decompress. I ended up back in England, and then it was quite clear what was to happen. So it's only one step at a time. I have no idea what'll be next. I mean, I couldn't imagine being here at this time now in 2024 compared to 2011. Unimaginable. You know, the work is going global now, so which I'm very happy about, and lots of very capable souls are joining our team at the Centre for Conscious Ascension who want to teach it. So my focus has shifted this year to teaching the teachers. That's my main focus. So that's, you know, you guys are in that group, and so it's like I can see what's going to happen now. It's going to spread. We have regional teaching groups so that it's more time friendly, so you don't have to get up at midnight and have your daughter jumping on you at 6:30 in the morning. And so I thought you were very brave. There was 3 of you who got up at midnight and you didn't care. You just said,
at all.
I have to be on the training. Didn't matter. It still happened. It still happens on the Asia Pacific training. We had someone from Oregon said, I have to come. I can't wait till October. I'm going to do it now. I just don't care. I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like, and I would do it again.
Yeah.
I prefer not to, but I would. Now, I do want to talk about one of my favorite aspects that Soul Contracts includes and provides is the recommendations, right? It says, okay, here's where you may struggle in life. Here's something that may be a challenge for you. But then it doesn't just say, have a good day, figure it out. It actually has all these recommendations on how you can transmute all these challenges and break through all of this, right? So my question for you is that something that was channeled through Frank, or is that something that you added on, like, as you were expanding the work?
It was, he had some baseline interpretations, which he talked about during the training. Okay, but Amir and I grew that enormously from our clinical experience of delivering thousands of readings. That's how we just tried on stuff to see what would happen, find out what works. It was trial and error, a lot of it. And it just kept growing and growing. And because we met every couple of months to actually put down what we'd learned. And that's how it just grew like topsy, the whole thing. A lot of discussions were had about, well, is this actually right for this? Until we got down to what you see today in the manual and in the book.
I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
Lauren, should we get into our speed round questions?
Before we do, this can be part of the speed round. Yeah, go for it. I have one question that can be part of that.
Okay, go ahead. You do the first speed round question, then I'm going to bang them out.
Okay. So we recently had a guest on. We had a conversation about fate and free will. And obviously, part of that conversation, we had to talk about the sixes. We talk about how in the karmic element, the sixes are said to not have 100% free will. I'd love to hear you expand on that a little bit more, how that plays in and how you kind of talk to someone about you do still have free will, but what does that mean to say that someone with this frequency doesn't have 100% free will?
Well, I have 8 sixes between my newly discovered Chinese name last November and an older name I'd used, so I know a lot about this. It has all the numbers I don't like in that Chinese. All the numbers I give out about in the training to you guys, I got them all. How's that for karmic justice? 21 threes and all that sort of stuff like that. And so basically it means that there's an extra strong focus by the soul. It wants to go in a certain direction, which is why we say there's no free will. There still is free will. You could choose not to do that, but the soul is driving you forward because it's focused on one particular way of doing it, which is why you have my way or the highway attitude from a 6. This is the only way as far as the 6 is concerned. Okay. But there is a free will choice still. And if the 6 is in soul destiny, there's definitely something so the soul wants you to do, very specific. What happens with the 6 is that it's about becoming conscious of this drive of seeming like there's only one thing I can do, and because it seems like that's the only way to do it. It's Taurus, it just charges. But the other more refined part of the interpretation is that the universe will then talk to a 6 through different people and suggest something slightly different and more enhanced that you could do with this. And the learning of the 6 is to basically listen and not disregard because of the charge of the Taurian energy, and go on a slightly different path. And if you do that as a 6, the outcome will be a lot better. You won't get a sore head from hitting a brick wall or a steel wall with spikes, which is what 6s tend to do initially until it gets their attention. And they get bigger and bigger headaches until it gets their attention. So there's actually free will to actually flow with spirit much more rather than flowing with the ego, which is what a 6 is doing initially. So it's like it's locked down. It's like you're down this narrow chute and you can't get out. But there are ways of getting out of it and creating something better with it. Okay.
Yeah, and I like what you say about these people are going to show up, because that's kind of the way that I have interpreted that, is that it's not to say that there's not free will, but it's more that there's going to be extra direction, right? That there's kind of this mission. There is something where your soul will have chosen this frequency to say, I don't want to get distracted. I used the analogy on that episode of if you're bowling and you have bumpers on, it's like, well, we're not going to risk going into the gutter this lifetime. We're just going to make sure that you stay on path. We're going to direct you back to your path if you try to go off course. But that you're still are making those free will decisions in the moment. It's just that spirit's kind of showing up to like direct you back to path.
Yeah. There's a general direction it wants you to go in. Okay. But it's about how you maneuver within that, and it's about listening to the input, especially if someone says something to you twice. That's a hint from the universe. Better pay attention, or it's going to hurt. Okay, in some way. And it's a question: can you? It's still going to go down the general direction, but we're going to do it in a better, more enhanced way. That's what I've learned with the way it works. So yes, there is
that extra.
I best call it limited free will, or less free will is probably a better way to term it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The new term I had created was free reign, right? Is spirit giving you free reign or not? So it's to say you don't have free reign. You're going to kind of get directed, but you do have free will to make the decisions, but you don't have free reign. Spirit's going to keep you on this path, kind of no matter what you try to do.
Yeah.
And the explanation of that too, it really makes, as somebody with a karmic 6, it really makes me feel so much better to know that it's like, no, I'm not just stuck. No, I can't just accomplish something. No, I can't just get this thing. It's like my soul keeps trying to redirect me into where I'm supposed to go. So it's being blocked. So thinking of it that way is actually much better than thinking, why can't I accomplish the thing I want to accomplish? Which I feel like for the most part in my life, I don't really struggle with that anymore. But when I did, it's hard. It's hard to just want to do something and you just can't. You just can't. It it can almost be heartbreaking. But anyway, I'm digressing. But thank you for sharing that and explaining that in such a beautiful way.
I actually have a story from my life that I feel like emphasizes this point really well, where I was planning to go to grad school to study international education. Um, and I was all set. I was accepted. I had paid my tuition at the school. And then I was on vacation and I get this email about, we tried to contact you, but the program you're going to start in January, it's suspended until fall. And then I call them in January to be like, well, can I get my tuition back? And they're like, oh, by the way, it's suspended indefinitely because we're totally redoing this program. And once I had my spiritual awakening, I looked back and I thought about that. And I said, I was clearly not meant to be on that path. And I was stubbornly continuing to follow that path. And so spirit had to blow that road up so I couldn't go down it anymore. They were like, you're not changing gears. So we're going to, like, there is no more road to follow. This is just gone. And sometimes I'm like, well, Lauren, this didn't all just happen because of you, but there were 2 schools that I had applied to and got accepted to. And I accepted the place and was interested in the place where inevitably that program was going to end. If I had accepted and been interested in the other school, it would have continued and I probably would have done it. And there's probably a version of myself out there in the universe who works in international education still to this day with a master's degree. So, I just think of it that way. That's where the free will choice, consciously from the soul, being like, get interested in the Vermont school. Because we know that's actually going to turn into a dead end and you're going to have to redirect.
Well, you probably got a parallel split. And there is one of you cruising down with her master's degree, doing something quite different now.
I mean, I was definitely on that path for a while, so I'm not surprised. And she's probably very happy getting to like be a international or study abroad director somewhere. She's having a great life.
Yeah.
I hope.
Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Yes. What is your favorite frequency?
With the numbers.
Mhm.
22, because it means you can do anything you want. If you feel the urge and you can do it well.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Which level of soul contracts do you enjoy teaching the most? 1, 2, or 3? And why?
2, because it talks about the deepest energetic interactions between people that create relationships the way they are, the most challenging thing we all face in terms of love relationships, families, raising kids. It talks about the invisible glue that draws us together in very specific, crazy making ways.
Oh, yeah.
People love to understand what's really going on. And when they hear it, they think, well, that explains everything. What do I do?
I feel like that's where I got hooked too.
Is there something I can do about it? Or is this situation untenable? What can I do? So that it unlocks that hidden puzzle.
Oh, yeah. Especially within that family dynamic. I know for me, obviously I named my daughter before I knew about soul contracts, and I probably would have given her that name anyway. Her soul chose it. But we have a karmic 6/6 clash. And she actually has double 6s in both of her karma. Okay. So we got extra. So I knew that was her personality from the moment she was born. But seeing it in front of me and seeing like, oh, this is where we clash. Now, like, it allowed me to approach those charging situations in a way where we don't have to fight or stand our ground on who's going to win. I can work it as the parent in a way where she feels she won, I feel like I won, and there's just peace. It doesn't have to be like this charging at each other. So that stubborn energy runs deep in this family. Okay. What is the wildest reading experience you've ever had?
I was giving a reading to a psychopath. He tried to take over the reading. He had a karmic 9, one karmic 9, and the other karmic 22/4. That's the psychopathic tendencies. Doesn't mean someone's definitely got it, but if you are given this is a public video, but from all the psychopaths I've worked with, they all have it. But I've met some other clients who don't have that, and they're not that, but it gives you the predisposition for it. Okay. And seeing how dire his situation was, because how distorted and damaged the ego got because of feeling completely disempowered with the 9 and completely disconnected from source. There was no source, no God, as far as his ego was concerned. Okay. And just seeing how someone could energetically get so wound up and tight in their system. And he came because he wanted to unwind that, because he tried everything. So the system provided some meaning to why it was the way it was, which made it a little easier for him.
Did you ever check in with that client after, or get a progress check from him of how things were going?
He struggled. He struggled. He actually died quite young because his soul couldn't handle the pain of it. That was a very sad day when I found that out. He died when he was 30. Because it was just so painful. The soul had underestimated how difficult it would be, because when you're in the higher dimensions, on the fourth or fifth dimension, you don't have a sense of time or causality or human emotional pain. But once you're in the body, you guys, oh my God, I think I've overdone this, because we're not coping too well. That's one of the most extreme cases I've ever had.
Wow. Okay. Well, the next question I know many people would want to know is, it's not my favorite one, Lauren, we're going to get to that after. What is the best frequency to have in a business name, or what is one that you're like, we got to get this in there when you are helping somebody create and build on their business name?
You want to have 7s and foundation, simply because you've got to bring your customers who are resonant with what you're doing. That'll be the most important one. If you know customers, it doesn't matter what else you have in the abilities or success of the business, because you know one to deliver it to.
Okay. Second favorite?
I say 6s, because 6s are great in business, back to our 6s, because it's very grounded and focused. And provided they're connected to the spiritual signature, you focus on what you want to create, eventually it will happen. A lot of businesses fail because people don't put the sweat in to actually make it happen. It's 97% sweat and effort, 3% inspiration to actually make a business happen. That's the reason 70% of small businesses fail after 5 years, because they run out of money often because they haven't got it going fast enough, and the 6 is actually manifesting something to actually happen. But you've got to be obviously focused on the right thing, and that's the tricky part. Because a vision or an idea is not a business. You've actually got to ground that in terms of something that actually pays the bills, that actually works out there. So translating what we call the visionary template, the 5th dimensional quantum field plan that each lightworker has into a grounded business is a very tricky process, because it's coming through the human ego. But if you can have 7s, 6s to focus, you've got a much better chance of this thing actually happening.
I mean, at this point, you gave me 1, you gave me 2. Just give me one more.
It all depends on what the business wants to achieve. Okay. That will be the third one. All depends on that. Depends what you want to achieve. I would have 3s or 4s, say, in somewhere either in the abilities or the success, because then you're going to bring the flow of people and wealth and money, because you need money to run a business. You've got to pay you've got to invest in your business. You've got to pay your team, especially your team, so you can grow your business. So you need to create wealth, not just for the sake of making money, but just because it's the lifeblood of growth for any spiritual business, which is probably mostly what the audience is watching this are involved in.
Right.
So it's important not to see money as a dirty thing. It's misused badly on earth, but you need the money to actually grow your business. Without that, you're not going to get anywhere.
Beautiful.
So it's purely an energy you've got to manage.
Thank you. Listen, I know you've helped a lot of people just by that one question just that one question by itself. So I appreciate that. I mean, we're all sitting here going, what are our frequencies again? Okay. This is a question I've been dying to ask you. Why do you hate the 5 frequency so much?
Well, I've got them. I wouldn't say hate it. It's more. Where did I say that?
Well, look, your explanation of the 5 frequency is very much, it's weak, it's not powerful. It's, you want to change it, you want to put something stronger in wherever that 5 is.
I better clarify that. See, 5 is the most sensitive etheric energy. I wouldn't say I hate it. It's more about how do we manage it,
Yes.
because it's etheric, fairy-like, wispy energy, and if it's not grounded, okay, into reality, then it doesn't get anywhere. That's more what I was talking about. Because 5s are spiritual visionaries. I mean, I have them myself in my new optimal name. I love them. I'm in that name because it gives you the vision of what your soul wants to create, because you're directly connected to the higher realms. But the tricky part of the 5 is to ground it and turn it to, that's where you need a 6. So you have a step-by-step plan to turn that vision into reality, to move from being excited by the vision, which some 5s can be excited for 30 years and nothing happens. And they realize, oh, nothing's happened. I've been wasting my time. To ground it, that's why we have level 2. We do overlays to ground the 5. So that turns into a plan that actually goes out into the world and makes a difference. Because manifest visions are the key. That's the reason I talk about it that way. So not that I hate it. It's actually a brilliant number, because without vision, we need vision first to create reality. Okay. Vision, and it's the truth of our mission, comes through a 5 if you've got them, either in a birth name or in an overlay. Some of them, I just see so many people struggling with them. They don't turn it into grounded reality. They're just happy with the vision. And I say this to them, I say, God, I have been sitting around for 10, 15 years, Nicholas. Nothing's happened. What do I do? So we say, okay, name optimization. Then they get excited. I mean, I can turn it into a reality. Let's go. You see? Because the numbers can mesmerize you. You can get put in like a little time capsule with some of the numbers, and you're in there, and it's slowly simmering, but it's actually not getting you to where you really want, because you can't see outside that frequency because you're in it. Like the goldfish in the tank, which is water, or tank water, which is gradually heating it. You don't realize you're completely in it because you've never been out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You see.
Thank you. Listen, as somebody with a 5/5 soul destiny, I appreciate that. And I was just doing a play on words with the whole hate. Obviously, hate is a strong word. I was trying to be funny, but it is presented as this weak ethereal energy that, like, in the physical, like, people can dismiss very easily, but it is such a beautiful frequency. So thank you for sharing that.
All the frequencies are special in their own way.
Yes.
It's a matter of understanding them, and I want to see the best for people, and that's some of the things I say are a product of a great frustration, because people are not grasping what the number is really about, even though you're expressing it to your blue in the face, because they're so immersed in it, they can't see outside the number until someone gives them some input. Like, I hadn't realized how intense my T14/5s were. To close friends explained how intense it is when the 14's running. So, and that's after 30 odd years of knowing this. Okay. Like a 5 doesn't realize the excitement of the vision is only the beginning, 20% of it, you see. So I want to see people manifest. The whole point of the work is to manifest their soul destiny, get out there and deliver their gift. And something like, because don't get there because they haven't got enough drive or the tools or understanding or willingness to do it. So I'm a walk-in, so I expect the best from people. Also a Virgo, also lots of 10-1s, so I expect perfection, you see. So perfection or bust, basically. So this is why I say some of the things I do.
Yep. I love it. Okay. If you could ask Frank Alpert any question, what would it be?
I'd ask him what's next with the work. That's what I ask. Did the solar message tell you something, Frank? Okay. I mean, he was guiding me in writing the book, because he had actually started writing a book, but he never finished it. But he was the one guiding me, especially in the case studies. I had the Brooklyn accent from Spirit yapping at me. So let's do it this way and this way. And he structured the whole thing. It was really interesting. He hung out with me for 18 months on that book because he died and passed away in 2007. So he was still keen for the work to get out there. So we were sort of like father and son, really. I think at a soul level, very strong connection. So basically, I finished off. I got the book out there that he wanted. He don't know how. I'd never seen what he'd written, but I got it out there in the world. So his spirit was pretty happy about that.
Well, listen, maybe he'll come back and tell you what actually is next.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
See what's next.
Okay, something that Lauren and I briefly talked about earlier, just between amongst us two, is with each generation, the frequencies basically change, right? You see like a shift, and now you've been doing this for a while. So how have you seen them change for each generation in a sense of like, and also what do you see coming in very strongly now?
I see with each generation, the intensity of the karma gets less, significantly less, because the high frequency souls coming to Earth in the ascension process don't need to be in the emotional meat grinder or karmic meat grinder of Earth that long. They need enough karma so that they can actually learn what it's like to be human. That's the first thing. Okay, because many have never been in a human form before. Learn what it's like to be human and relate to the rest of the people on Earth, what their challenges they're going through. Then they just get on with it. So basically, the proportion of the amount of karmic stuff gets less and less, and the types of numbers change. You see very powerful high frequency soul come in, and their numbers are completely different. You see more 9s, 11, 2s, 5s, and the way the numbers are configured are completely different each generation. Yeah, the different patterns altogether. Sometimes you've never seen them before that turn up. And the older generation have heavier numbers. You can feel it in looking at the charts, much denser, more stuck, takes longer to get through, like karmic mud. Because that was the generation, that was the era. So yeah, you have millennials in their 20s who have busted through a lot of stuff. I mean, Brian's one of them, and just getting on with it. Okay, because you've learned enough and you're much more conscious. So yeah, people are a lot more conscious and aware, and like they've had a bit of a taste of what it is to be human karmically, then just get on with the mission, which is great to see, because that's how we transform the world. I mean, we're building a new Earth now. The whole matrix that we were brought up in is completely crumbling before our eyes, and especially in the past 5 years. So it's these souls who are going to build a new Earth, and with consciousness, a completely different world is being born now.
I want to add to that. Well, I want to ask the second question to that. Do you think that also has to do, like level 2, right, is all about relationships and contracts with our parents and children. Do you think that is also because our children or our parents, for example, for me and my daughter, because I'm more consciously aware than my mother was, that is also part of like them coming in where they don't have to go through as much karma, right? Because I'm able to help her move through that easier. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, we have a contract to transmute our parents' karma if they don't do it. In the previous generations, had no tools. Therefore, we had to go and do divine healing and clear all our stuff. And a lot of our stuff is their stuff and their ancestors' stuff, because we have millions of ancestors. They've been waiting, staring down the genetic lineage, saying, okay, who's going to clear this? There's a sensitive one. I call them we're emotional processing units. That's what I call, especially if you've got 11, 2, or 5, you don't get paid for it either. So we're the ones who have to clear all the family karma. So the more we clear, that means our children don't have to clear it, because it stops with us. The karmic buck stops with us. So therefore, our kids are freer to get on, they have to waste their time clearing a whole bunch of ancestral line stuff, because we've done it for them. And then it's great motivation for spiritual parents to work on their stuff. If they didn't have the kid, once they learn that a child's going to have to deal with their stuff, they go, oh, I'm going to do the work because I don't want them to suffer like I did. That child is free to bring their mission online much faster. Okay, so we hold back the dam of the karmic flow down the family line, and then they're free to create the new world, which is why they were born. They weren't designed to shovel karmic concrete like we were. They're
Right.
just not interested.
I love that. That's beautiful. Okay. And then something that you actually touched on earlier where you said, I couldn't imagine soul contracts today, 10 years ago or 15 years ago for it to be what it is today. So my question is there a vision, or do you see what it could look like 20 years from now?
Well, we have a vision with the soul contract software where it's producing automated reports, which we're gradually launching. We're still testing, as you guys know. We're rolling out to the practitioners. Our Robin Ishmael Frederick Williams, my business partner, who's a practitioner, we've been working on this for 10 years. The software that you guys use, soulcontractreader.com, we built that first. It took about 4 years online. Then we spent the past 6 years building the soul contract report software. And the aim is to reach 10 million people in the next 10 years with those reports. Initially, there'll be PDF reports via the practitioners like you guys. We'll be talking about that. But eventually, you'll just be able to go onto the site and generate the charts electronically once we've built all the systems to support that. So basically, we're going for mass awakening, really, and then to take that out so people use it on an everyday basis to create a more harmonious life for themselves and their families and work. That's sort of where we're headed with it, really. So they can live more consciously according to the principles of the work. That's a long-term plan. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that's beautiful because for me, a huge part of my, I guess, style as a practitioner is just, or philosophy and how I see the work is just that by bringing consciousness to it, that, Yiannah talks about the recommendations and I'm like, I don't even feel like I work with the recommendations all that much because to me, it's sort of just by having the awareness. In my mind, I'm like, that's really all that you need. And the other stuff can help because when you do those things, you might be doing those things already, but now you have the consciousness that that is helping you work through that challenge. And I think that makes it even more effective. So that's huge for me. And yeah, I mean, whether you're spiritual or not, we all know the kind of the expression, the first step to fixing a problem is recognizing that you have one. Right.
yeah,
So in these cases, it's like the first step of breaking a pattern or a program is recognizing that you have one. And once you're aware, you start to see this all throughout your life, all throughout your day and in your relationships, all of that. You start to be like, oh, that's that energy. Oh, that's that energy. Oh, that's that energy. And I think it can help you to have so much more compassion for yourself to just recognize, like, okay, I'm meant to this is meant to be a little bit of a challenge for me. Maybe someone else finds this easy. I was meant to find this a little bit challenging and to work through it and to learn that lesson, maybe so to teach it, whatever it is. So I think that is so huge. And I love, when you have this goal, because I just think it's such a beautiful language. So I love the idea that more people are going to speak this language.
yeah. I mean, like you guys as practitioners, you speak in numbers to each other. And,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone else who's not trained thinks, what are they on about? And it's interesting to watch that. But if more people speak that language, then people are living more consciously and relating more consciously and doing business more consciously. So we get a better world as a result of it. So I think we're only just getting started with this work, really, what it can do to transform life on Earth, really.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Nicolas, for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, you're going to have to accept our invitation for you to come back at some point. But why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah. So the website is Center. You can see it on my window there, Center for Conscious Ascension.net. You can generate your own soul contract with soulcontractreader.com. I think the link, I'll send you the links later. I think the link for getting the reports is yoursoulcontractreport.com, something like that. But it's on the website as well. And if you want to read the book, it's Your Soul Contract Decoded.com. You want to get to that. That's all. Everything's on the website if you want to play with that. get more conscious, live a better life, make a difference. Because God sends many light workers, but the point of this work is to bring you all online to deliver your gift, not get lost in the illusions and struggle of the matrix. This is how we break out of the matrix. That's the whole point of it.
Beautiful.
And yes, we'd love you to come back, and we can go deeper.
Yes.
Deeper.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Well, everybody, head over to our Instagram, the Let's Talk Vibes podcast. Let us know how you're doing getting on with your mission and what has the soul contract work meant for you in your own awakening and spiritual journey. And if you would like to get your chart generated by us, head over to our website, theltvpodcast.com.
And as always, everybody, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment on our content. It is the best way to support us, and we appreciate it so much. Have a beautiful, blessed day. Bye.
Bye.